Hello, and welcome to Dig It. I'm Peter Brown, and hosting the show with me today is Chris Day. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Peter.
Wow, July in the garden.
It's been a hot one, hasn't it, Peter?
Hasn't it been glorious? Yeah. I think the reservoirs are running a bit low, although we had a ferocious sort of hailstorm the other day here at Buckingham. It was amazing.
Indeed.
Such a long... Well, our reservoir that we collect the water from the garden centre watering in went up a metre.
Really, in that day?
In just that, sort of, I think it was about half an hour, of just torrential rain. And the reservoir rose about a whole metre. So I was quite surprised by that. But
indeed.
Anyway.
And in my little world, hay fever, of course, the pollen levels have been horrendous. Anybody who suffers from grass allergens especially will be, I have your sympathy, because it's been quite bad over the last week or so. As we go into July, hopefully it's going to improve a little bit.
Down a bit. But I know what you mean. Your eyes feel a little bit puffy. And
not good.
Thankfully,
I
don't suffer from it too much, but I know exactly what you mean.
Indeed.
But anyway, what's been going on, or what is going on, should I ask, Chris?
Indeed, yeah. Well, Peter, it's again July, yet another busy month. 3 big shows to look forward to. Over the 4th to the 9th of July, we've got, of course, Hampton Court Garden Festival at the wonderful palace over in Surrey there. So I know it's the go-to place. I went in the very first year of its existence, going back and it was amazing, and it still is. It's just such a wonderful backdrop, and if you want to have a picnic in a wonderful setting and look at lovely plants and gardens, that's where you should go, I think, this summer. Realistically, it's a great event.
Excellent.
And then on the 15th and 16th of July, Belvoir Castle hosts a flower and garden show. That's over in Grantham in Lincolnshire, and again, it's got lots of garden designs, talks, usual sort of sculptural artists, nurseries, everything you need in one place. That's a nice smaller weekend event. And then another RHS flower show. If we hadn't had enough at the beginning of the month, we've got one over the 19th to the 23rd of July, and of course that's the RHS garden show at Tatton Park near Knutsford. Yes.
Yeah. So the RHS are really, they have a busy couple of months, don't they? Chelsea and then Hampton Court, then Tatton Park.
And these two are well, certainly the Hampton Court is certainly the sort of jewel in the crown, I would say. But Tatton has been doing well. It's quite a relatively new show. It's been going for probably just over 10 years now, so it's now well established as well. Yeah.
Good. And I guess their rival is the Gardener's World Show, isn't it? That's just finished. Is it just finished?
It has, yes.
At the NEC. Now, a friend of mine went there, and he was really impressed. His second year running, and he thinks the show gardens there are amazing. And I think you were saying, have they combined it with the Good Food Show now?
That's it. It's sort of, so your ticket gets into both of the shows. So good value for money, certainly. And if you're interested, if you're a gardener, you're going to be interested in food. And if you're a foodie, you want to know where it's come from. So it does
definitely
both things.
I know my friend had some nut cheese forced in front of him on a stick. And he's like, he's a vegan, so he wasn't too offended by it. But equally... Our experiences of eating nut cheese so far haven't been that great. I don't know if you've ever tried it.
I've never tried it. No.
I'd say try it just because I'm one of those people who likes to try everything. But honestly, Chris, I haven't tried a nice one yet.
Oh, okay. So definitely an acquired taste by the sounds of it.
But the show at the NEC though, they take over the sort of. Now let me get this right. Is it Hall 11 to 19? There's the horseshoe bit with like the pavilion, and it's got a lot more outside sort of area and space out there, hasn't it? So
to host all the gardens.
Yeah, the show gardens are all outside.
Yeah, indeed.
From what I've seen.
Indeed, and of course our good friend Nick Hamilton was at the show, and obviously he'd created a wonderful garden, which I've seen some pictures of it. It looks great to obviously celebrate.
It's his 40th anniversary,
that's
isn't
correct.
it? And that's why he was there. So.
Yes. So there was a big 40 sort of cast out on the design, and obviously lots of lovely plants. And I think there was a lot of plants looking at drought tolerance as well. So in view of the weather, that's probably very well timed as well.
Yeah, because my lawn is looking a bit. I haven't mown it for I'm going to say 3 weeks now.
Okay.
Just because I thought it's dry. I'm not going to water it. I'm just going to leave it.
Yep.
And to be fair, it's still looking green,
Yes,
but
yeah.
I am a little bit concerned that if it doesn't rain soon,
it's going to go around.
it's going to
But don't they
need
say,
watering.
don't they say, Peter, the lawn is the first thing to go brown, but it is the first thing to go green when we do get some rain. So it's not the end of the world. It's what it is, isn't it? It's a very resilient perennial plant. So, hopefully it'll come back. Yeah,
it'll come back soon.
Yeah. But I suppose one thing which the Gardeners World show did highlight was, of course, the Peter Seabrook Award, which we mentioned in the last podcast, and for the search for the best new plant.
Okay.
And that was picked up by a variety called Rose Peters Persica, which is bred by Chris Warner, and it's going to be introduced by Wharton's Roses. Now, of course, Wharton's were on our podcast a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously have that available, hopefully, this autumn or certainly next summer as well. So it's a lovely rose.
It's a yellow one with a sort of, what would you say, reddy sort of centre almost?
That's
so
it, yeah.
Do you call those bicolours?
Sort of, yeah, it's a bicolour. I think Persian roses have that sort of quality, isn't it? They always have that sort of two-tone colour form, but it looked beautiful and obviously well deserved. So that got obviously a lot of awards there, and also the Jeff Hamilton Award for the best floral marquee went to a nursery called Grafton Nurseries, and they had an amazing display of eucalyptus. Again, if climate change is anything to go by, might be planting a few of those in the years to come.
I do like the sort of grey, silvery leaves of eucalyptus, and it's got such a lovely smell as well, hasn't it? It's one of those. I mean, at the moment, obviously, all the roses are in flower, and I always just walking over here to the Malvern buildings today. They've got some lovely red roses that are in flower, and you just walk past them. It's like,
it is
lovely, isn't it?
Well, if you're a hay fever sufferer, perhaps not so good on the
Sorry.
perfume. But no, the perfume of them is amazing. So, yeah, a lot of good feedback from Gardeners World Live. So,
excellent.
So that's all good for
maybe we should have a look and see if we can go next year, Chris.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a little mooch round, wouldn't it? And see if we
proper
can
report back.
Yeah, let's do something a bit more investigative, perhaps. Yeah.
Brilliant, good stuff. So, in the news at the moment, I see King Charles has been over in Ireland. He's got a Coronation Garden over there, and they open that. And obviously, there's lots of royal plantings being done this year. I think the sort of red, white, and blue themes are prevalent in a lot of bedding displays. And I know certainly one down in Wadston hit the news recently about their royal cipher displays in carpet bedding. That sounds really interesting. And there's quite a few new gardens opening, aren't there, Chris?
There is, Peter. Yeah, there's quite a lot going on, really. So going back to the King Charles, this one in Ireland, it's designed by Chelsea gold medalist Dermot Gavin, obviously well known on the TV. He did a lot of stuff over the years, and he's created this amazing garden. They spent a lot of time formulating it, and he describes it as being quite whimsical sort of garden, but it looks great, and it has lots of quintessential elements. It has topiary and all the other elements as well. So I think it sounded like a very good day, and obviously it's going to be open to the public as well. They can visit. Yeah.
Is it County Antrim?
County Antrim, yes. It's Hazelbank Park.
That's in Newton Abbey.
That's it. Yep. So one to look out for
if you're visiting
Ireland.
That'd be a nice place to go, isn't it?
That's right. And like you were saying, Peter's lots of other ones are sort of new gardens sort of coming to light now. There's a formal retreat which was laid bare, which is now being reopened to the public, and that's down in Devon.
The pictures look amazing. Sort of lovely, sort of almost conjures up sort of those ruins in jungles with all the vines and what have you from the images I've seen of it.
I would almost be expecting Indiana Jones to walk around the corner.
Yeah, that's it. A big python or something to come out the side.
But yeah, so this is a major work, and it's obviously been started, over a number of times. It's obviously had quite a lot of money. It's been a 3-year project, and obviously it's a grade listed 3 property as well. So obviously they've had to keep in with the rules too. But it does look amazing. It's going to be open to the public by appointments right through to October. So one to look out for. We'll put the links on the show notes to that as well.
Yeah, that's the Great Ambrook in Devon.
In Devon,
That's
indeed.
a posh name, but I like the chap who designed its name. He's called George.
Oh yes, of course. Yes, he was. Well, he was.
Yeah, it was a brilliant
Fantastic.
name.
Yeah, you're not going to forget his surname or your
Yeah.
Christian name. That's good. And then, moving to the capital. This is quite interesting, isn't it, Peter?
It's a brilliant idea, I think. Yeah, lovely. I mean, there are so many secret gardens. I can remember many years ago I heard about the Kensington Roof Gardens that unfortunately shut now. But yeah, that was one of those. Back in the 80s, that was the place to be seen, wasn't it? But equally, for those that didn't know, it was a lovely, great garden, bar and nightclub, I think, up on the top floor of some houses in Kensington. And really, and they have flamingos, didn't they?
They did, yes, beautifully set
There's
out.
some other secret gardens that don't get opened up very often, and that's some of these have been found and opened up, haven't they?
So this is all part of the London Historic Parks and Gardens Trust charity. So if you go to their website, you'll get all the details, but they include very formal squares, which you often see in London, temporary rooftop terraces with city views, as well as community allotments and wildlife havens. So a real diverse mix of green spaces to explore. So that could keep you nice and busy through the rest of the summer, I'm sure. And then finally on the new gardens, one we reported back last month, which is all part of the charity Perennial, which was of course the Rushton Old Vicarage Gardens, which has been bequeathed to the charity. Now we've got another one from the renowned historian and generally nice chap, Sir Roy Strong. Obviously a great garden innovator, quite outspoken actually in gardening terms. He was quite forthright in the 80s and 90s when all these gardening makeover programs came on the TV. I remember him voicing his concerns that gardens are not for 48 hours, they're for life. His sort of motto. But his own garden is now bequeathed to the charity, so you can actually visit there Tuesdays and Thursdays until the end of October. Okay. And it sounds a really good value as well. So one to put on the list if you want to see a really historic, quintessential garden.
Well, the images I can see look sort of quite formal.
Yes.
And very, I mean, it says that the garden influences include Hidcote Manor in the Cotswolds and former gardens of Tudor and Stuart England.
Yes.
So,
lots of box.
I think it's going to be lots of straight lines, but and very ornate topiaries, I'm guessing.
Indeed, Peter. And when you look at the picture there, there's a decorative spiral staircase in the middle of the garden. So obviously a wonderful viewing point. But hey, that's his art and crafts. He was involved in the Victoria and Albert Museum for many, many years as their sort of chief curator, wasn't he? So he obviously has embellished the arts to create a wonderful garden.
Brilliant. Probably worth a visit then.
Most definitely.
Good stuff. And thinking of lavender hidcote, there's a lovely purple flower, as is buddleia, which I grew very well in one of my gardens. It just grows like a weed. It's brilliant. It's sort of in my first house in Northampton. I had it started as a small bush and it got bigger and it got bigger, and I used to chop it back and it used to grow back. But it was always covered in butterflies, and I think they're lovely when you see them flying around. And it's I think one of the in this news article about the fact that gardens are safe havens for butterflies.
They are. We're doing a lot, aren't we? And so this article in Garden News sort of highlights the fact that the trend is definitely upward. Hopefully, I mean, these sort of summers we experienced last year and obviously we're experiencing this year are probably good news for butterflies. There's plenty of nectar around, and that's going to keep things moving along. And they were saying that numbers of marble whites and large skips have grown 200%. They've moved up the rankings quite well. So that's all good news, and I think it's probably a reminder, Peter, that this is a really good time if you want to make your garden even more butterfly friendly to start popping in some new plants through the summer months. You'll probably buy them in flower, so they'll instantly become a magnet to your local butterfly population. Yeah,
some more butterflies. I think that the cabbage white is another one that I see flying around a fair bit in the allotments.
Indeed, yeah. So make sure you net all your crops quickly, and make sure your netting is well away from your crop, because you know what they're like. They're opportunists, aren't they? They'll land on your netting and then But certainly, yeah, if you're thinking about buying plants, then obviously all the new varieties of buddleias available now. There's such a wide range. Some of the dwarf varieties are really good. If you've only got
I think that probably. I wish mine had been a dwarf, because mine was a standard sort of rogue seedling that just grew. But it did. The butterflies loved it, and to be fair, I didn't mind dressing it back every now and again. It was a nice, easy plant to grow.
Yeah, I must admit, I've one of my buddleias I haven't chopped back. It's White Profusion, which is the white flowered one, and I forgot to cut it back, and it's now probably a good 8 foot, and it's going to be probably 12 foot. So, but hey, it's what it is. It's not the end of the world. But certainly you have Verbena bonaeris, and obviously your perennial wallflowers and your marjoram, your herb marjoram. Great to attract them into the plot. And of course you can do that in just pots. If you haven't got the space to put into your borders, then just a few pots could do the trick.
Brilliant, good stuff. And another wildlife-related article I saw was the disappearing stag beetle. So it's been getting in the news, I say, over the last few years. It keeps on obviously declining, but they're on the hunt for it again, aren't they, Chris? Who do we need to help out this time? Yeah,
so it's the wildlife charity, the People's Trust of Endangered Species. That's PTES, and they're looking for volunteers in certain counties, because they haven't got the data to build a picture of how the numbers are declining. I think that's the thing, isn't it? I don't think we know the whole picture.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple of counties quite local to us. So Northamptonshire and Bedfordshire, they haven't got many statisticians recording for them. So if you do want to get involved, have a look on their website, ptes.org/GSH.
That's it. Yep.
And that is, I'm guessing, stands for the Great Stag Hunt.
Yes, it's a great title, isn't it? Yeah, so that's good. And something you could be doing through the summer months, especially we've got the summer holidays obviously looming. It's nice to get the children involved.
I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild, have you?
No, I haven't.
I've seen pictures of them, but I've never seen one.
No, I think I'd remember if I'd seen one, actually. It'd probably leave a indelible memory on your mind. But no, let's try and help the PTS with their great stag
hunt. Yeah, that's it. And I guess, the Scots have hit the news, haven't they?
They have, yes.
They're possibly not going to be following the peat ban.
Yeah, so there's obviously lots of news coming out about the peat ban, but this is...
it's really interesting, because there's one article I read about how they reckon there'll be millions of plant shortages if they do bring the ban forwards in England.
Yep.
And the Welsh are, as far as I know, currently joining in with the peat ban, but I think they might be sticking to the original timescale.
Yes.
And how the Scots are going to be a bit slower.
Yes, indeed. So, yes, it's a shame, because if the Scottish Government are going to do this, there's going to be a lot of... there's a lot of confusion, I think, in the garden trade, especially if they're producing plants which they're going to export to the rest of the UK. I'm sure they do grow lots of heathers and ericaceous plants and such like, which will find their way down here.
Most definitely.
I think, I know the HTA, obviously the Horticultural Trade Association, which of course we're a member, are obviously very concerned about this, because it's going to cause problems long term. And of course that 100 million plants you mentioned is more worrying, isn't it? And
I think as we're sort of finding out, the general public are moving over onto more and more peat-free compost, which I think is a great sort of step in the right direction. But obviously, if commercial growers are still going to be using it in Europe, that's going to be one thing. And then obviously now, if Scotland's also going to go, the English growers are just going to either move to Scotland or go over to Amsterdam and or Holland or something, and it just makes it a bit of a
minefield,
strange situation, shall we say?
Yeah, and I think, Peter, as well, isn't it? If the Dutch were to be stopped from sending up with their house plants, which are obviously probably 99% of them are grown in peat, apart from probably orchids, which are grown in bark. That would have a major implication on what garden centres and supermarkets and DIY stores can sell as houseplants. I think that would have a major impact, financial, across all sectors of the market. And of course, our love affair continues with houseplants, so hopefully they will see some sense and not go down that route.
Well, and I suppose the other thing is the ericaceous issue.
Indeed.
Is that we're going to talk in a minute about fact that some people are having great successes now with certain peat-free composts, but as far as we know, there's major issues with ericaceous composts.
That's right.
That peat-free ones just haven't really started working yet. They're still working hard at it, but none of the commercial suppliers that we use have really got a proper decent one yet.
No. And that's not despite trying all the different options out there. They've had plenty of time to experiment with the commercial peat-free options, but if they're not working and they're growing their crops of plants, Glandyke nurseries were in the news a week or two ago, Peter, because they're really concerned because they produce rhododendrons and azaleas across the whole trade, and they're at a wit's end at the moment because they can't find anything suitable to grow their plants in once peat is banned. So, a major worry.
Well, it's going to have a big impact, and we'll see what happens.
Indeed.
We'll see. And the other article that caught our eye in the news was this rare Dendrophylax lindenii, which is, what sort of rare plant is that, Chris?
It's common name you'll be pleased to hear is the Florida ghost orchid.
Okay.
Native of US and Cuba.
Yep.
And it's blossomed for the first time at the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew, obviously in London.
What a feat. How long's it been there, Chris?
Probably about 2 weeks.
Wow. They've obviously cared for it incredibly well in that time, and obviously nurtured it through its life.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, we slightly jest, but the news story is a little bit fraught, isn't it? It was flown over into the UK from Chicago literally a few weeks ago with buds on it to flower.
Ready to flower.
Yeah, at the Chelsea Flower Show. So
it's been a bit of a globe traveller, hasn't it? Because it started life in the University of Florida in 2014, and then it went to Chicago, where it obviously was grown into a proper plant and brought into bud. Yep. And then, like you say, brought out for flowering at the Chelsea Flower Show. So
it's one of those stories where it's great. Conservation is a brilliant thing. We're to encourage it. It's a great story, but however, its route to getting into the news pages is a little bit interesting, shall we say?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it, Chris. That's it. And we got some peat-free test results, haven't we? Now
we have.
I found this really interesting because the feedback I've been getting from so many people is that the peat-free composts are really hard to water. But this one sort of, I guess it's not they're hard to water, they're hard to get the watering right because they dry out, and then once they dry out, they're really hard to re-wet, I suppose is the feedback, isn't it, that we've been getting. But this is a positive article, isn't it?
It is. It's in Amateur Gardening magazine, and they're doing obviously a consumer testing, and basically they've looked at two products we sell at the garden centre here, which are freely available. That's Dalefoot, which is obviously a compost which has it's made up of bracken and wool, isn't it? That's its main ingredients. Yeah. And also, of course, the SylvaGrow Multipurpose Compost too, which of course is based on coir and wood chip and fine bark. So two different ingredients to put side by side. So that in itself is quite a good thing. But I think Ruth, who conducted the trials, said that she had one mishap, and she potted some Nicotiana seedlings into the Dalefoot potting compost, and it was too strong. Yep. So that's interesting in itself. That can happen to any compost. Antirrhinum seedlings are notorious for damping off if you put them in too strong a compost.
So strong meaning too much fertiliser?
Too much fertiliser, yes. Okay. Yeah, probably too much nitrogenous fertiliser as well. So that tends to scorch the roots, and that obviously causes the plants to topple over. And look, Yeah. Whereas obviously other plants have done well, but it's good that both have done well in general seed germination. And of course, there's some photographs showing some really nice tomato plants growing in the Dalefoot wall compost as well when they've moved on. So maybe it is to do with the species. Some plants might obviously fare better, but then that could be said about peat-based compost as well.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
This is probably not very scientific in that respect, but hey, we've got to go somewhere with getting advice.
Tests are good, aren't they? At the end of the day, it gives us some feedback, and like I said, the thing that I found really interesting was the fact that Dalefoot in particular, it was found to need less water.
Yes.
So it's holding the water better than peat compost.
Hence, that's why on one of the pictures it's captioned that hanging basket plants seem to do well because of that moisture retention. So for that reason, if you're thinking about planting up some late summer baskets at this time of year, Dalefoot might be the way to go to see how it fares.
Tip, definitely. Yeah. And B&Q are in the news for, they're going a bit green, aren't they? It's good to hear.
It is. Yeah, so they're launching this Mama Terra brand, which is part of Verve, which if you're customers to B&Q, you're familiar with the name Verve. It's their sort of own brand compost.
Okay.
However, they're going over to more natural products, obviously more organic or green, rather than them moving away from the synthetic chemicals, which of course has obviously been a bit of a blight on the landscape. And obviously on the back of this, they're obviously promoting no-dig gardening, which of course is something we've done a little bit on the podcast with our guest Charles Dowding a number of months ago. So he explained the process and basically,
It was a really interesting podcast. I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
I must admit, I was inspired to try it, but I haven't actually. Well, I made my compost bin, and it's about half full now.
Excellent.
But I was hoping to steal some compost from the garden centre. I haven't got around to doing that yet. So, but maybe soon I'll start trying that out. But yeah, I think no-dig gardening. Yeah. I know reading the allotment newsletter, there's a couple of people on the allotments that do it, and one of them's got 6 compost bins.
Wow.
Just to do one allotment.
Wow.
And she's worked out that's how many she needs to do it. So it does require a bit of space to collect all the organic matter, but she loves it because she has a bad back and doesn't like doing too much sort of physical work.
Perfect.
But finds that the no-dig gardening is the way forward. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go back in it through our timeline and you'll find it. And it's a definitely inspiring podcast to listen to.
Most definitely. And of course, the whole no-dig method basically is all about building up layers of organic matter on top of each other, isn't it? So you're physically not having to dig at all. So, and then obviously this particular products they're bringing out will allow you to do just that. So,
Brilliant. Good stuff.
All good.
And a story close to my heart. Well, I had some this morning with my breakfast. Beans.
Beans, yes. We're talking baked beans, I hope.
Baked beans, yes. Haricot beans.
Haricot beans, yes.
The chaps up in Lincolnshire. Is it university or?
It's Warwick. I think it's
Warwick University have developed them, haven't they?
They've
got a new variety of haricot bean that's going to grow in the UK.
Which is amazing because I didn't realise that they are imported from everywhere and everywhere, halfway around the world. To be processed into our favourite baked bean. So,
it's really good news, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you think all the different types of beans we can grow in this country,
yes,
and yet the ones that I don't know, do we eat more? I'm going to guess that we eat more baked beans than any other sort of bean in this country.
I would have thought so, yes. Yeah,
and yet we import them all. So
Indeed,
this could be great news for the English farmers because I know you get field beans and they feed the cattle with those.
Right,
so hopefully we can get a crop like this that they can grow that's got a bit more value and will do better in the British farms. So
and reading the news piece, this has been a 12-year project, so it's been a labour of love, Peter, hasn't it? And obviously they've had to develop a bean which will be more inclement with more durable in our obviously unpredictable climate. So it matures hopefully early part of August, so next month. Last year's attempts were slightly faltered by the hot summer. Let's hope that doesn't happen this year. But who knows? But it's going to be good. So the prospects of having UK grown
British baked beans
on toast.
That'd be nice.
It would be good,
and especially if the tomatoes are grown in this country as well.
Yes, that needs to happen, really, doesn't it?
Then the sugar from the sugar beet. Well, we grow lots of that. So
we
that
do,
be
thank goodness.
But the only one we did struggle with is where's the tin coming from to make the tin cans.
Yeah, and that used to be Cornwall, but maybe not so much these days.
Maybe they're buying that in. So, but hey, maybe it's recycled.
Yeah, maybe it is.
They could make the tins out of recycled metal.
They could use maybe recycled plastic, as sometimes I know. Heinz is offered.
You're buying posh beans if you're getting yours in plastic jars, Chris.
Don't buy posh beans.
Maybe they could put them in glass jars, and then that way
that's even better. Yeah,
we could recycle that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, Chris, well, I guess bedding season's sort of drawing to a close now, although everything's out and in flower, looking great. But
it's looking really good at the moment, isn't it? Everything, colour-wise, and hanging baskets are dripping with colour. So we've looked at the statistics of our six-pack bedding piece.
Okay, so we've got top 5 bestsellers this year, have we?
Yeah, indeed, and I'll do them in reverse order, if I may. Number 5... popular classic, Antirrhinums.
The Snapdragon.
Indeed. Yes.
Great for children. I used to love playing with the flowers. My mother wasn't quite so keen. When you push the sides and they go...
they open up. For children of all ages, perhaps. Yeah, that's certainly good. Number 4, we've got Petunia Mixed.
Okay.
Which is good. And number 3... Lobelia Trailing.
Okay. I love it's a great hanging basket addition round the edges, isn't it? It just goes and goes and goes.
Yes.
It's flowers forever.
It is, the true spiller plant for your container display. And, And then at number 2, we've got Geranium, this is Pelargonium, let's get them correct, Deep Red. So,
right, okay.
The bedding geranium.
Yep.
And at number 1, Geranium White. Pelargonium.
Wow. So you've got a red, white and blue. So maybe the public have been inspired by the royals, and we're all having nice royal colours for our bedding displays.
It would be interesting to see if there's any nice regimented red, white and blue displays around your towns and villages where you live. But no, I think it's an indication. But
brilliant,
a good old spring for sales of bedding plants. Long may it continue.
Nice one. Thanks, Chris. And I guess it's that time in the show where we move on to the job list.
Yes.
What jobs have you got for us this month, Chris? Other than watering, obviously.
Yeah, watering and feeding, of course, have got to be high priorities. But let's start, in the flower garden. My alliums have been good this year, Peter.
Okay.
They've been really good. Some of them I potted into pots and didn't plant out because I hadn't got the time. Have flowered beautifully in their little 10 centimetre pots, so I've got a job there. But of course it's the flower seed heads which we often think about what we should do with those. And a lot of people use them for cut decoration for Christmas, and it's just timely advice. If you're going to do that, then you need to be detaching them from the main plant, turning them upside down, letting the seeds dry, and then of course harvesting the seeds. It takes about 3-4 years to get an allium from seed, so it's a time-consuming bit. But then you've got that wonderful seed head then you can then use for Christmas decorations later on in the year.
That's good. And just thinking about seeds, and I mean, when we spoke to Charles Dowding, he was on about recycling and basically saving his seed, and the fact that he got massive success with that.
Yeah.
And now this year I was a bit sad I couldn't get the courgette. I grew a round green courgette a couple of years ago, and it was an amazing flavour. So this year I've grown some from seed, and they're called 8 Ball, and I'm hoping it's the same variety, but I've got a horrible feeling it won't be. So it might not be quite the same flavour I'm looking for. But if I want to save the seed from a courgette, do I just basically pull the seeds out of my standard sort of 2-3 inch courgette, or do I need to leave them to grow a bit longer? Because just thinking like the standard shaped courgette, I cut them when they're about 10 centimetres long, and when they're tiny and small, because I always think they're so much sweeter. Indeed. But then you go on holiday and you come back and they're 3 foot long.
They're a marrow,
they're 2 foot long, aren't they? Are they going to give me better seeds if I do leave them?
I would personally, leave them, let them mature to their normal size. So
so get them to properly grow out then.
To the point where they'll start to go yellow, and then once they start to yellow, then I would detach it from the plant, so all the energy then goes into your other courgettes you're trying to develop. You want to, because obviously it's going to sap a lot of the energy out of the plant by doing that. But that's the trade-off, I suppose, isn't it? And then obviously cut the what will be effectively a small marrow, and obviously expose the seed. Days like today, in the height of summer, dry the seeds off on the windowsill or
so basically what, just split the sort of marrow courgette in half.
That's it.
Do you scoop the seeds out, would you leave them in the
I think I'd probably scoop them out, maybe leave them for a day or two just to sort of to dry up a little bit so they come away from the flesh a little bit easier, and then use a bit of a scoop, something like an ice cream scoop would be good, I suppose, and then put those on to some kitchen paper to dry out for probably maybe about a week, no more than that, because you don't want to see.
You're going to get thousands of seeds, aren't you, out of one courgette?
You're going to get plenty, yes. So probably more than ample.
Excellent. And do you have to worry about it being pollinated? Because obviously you get the flower, and then that develops into the courgette. Now, do courgettes need pollinating?
So long as the pollen comes from the same plant or from the same variety you've got growing next to it. So if you're growing a couple of this particular variety, Peter, what I would do is use the male flower from that same plant, and then once it's pollinated, it might be worth putting a sort of brown paper bag or something over it to stop any other pollinating insects coming there to add any further cross-pollination. Okay. I think that would be doable, or a little bit of sort of the bags you get from the supermarket with your onions in, something to stop the small flies and things getting in there. Right, and then that will then help to protect. And then once the flower drops off, then of course the pollination is complete. So excellent. Yeah, so it's only it's probably not even 3 or 4 days that process takes. But make sure the male flower is used to pollinate on that plant if you can.
Okay, brilliant, thanks. Okay, so, I guess we'll see what these 8-ball courgettes turn into then. It might be quite fun.
Indeed. Thinking about the variety, Peter, 8-ball, I've just checked, it is an F1 hybrid.
And what's that mean? Doesn't that mean I can't propagate it?
Yeah, because it basically, if you take the seeds from your wonderful courgettes, they won't come true. They'll be the second generation, so you'll get a mixture of the parentage of the two plants used to breed that.
So maybe I'll get some oblong shaped courgettes, or maybe a square courgette. You never know.
It might not be compact. It might be a very vigorous bush variety. So there is, so if it's an F1, unfortunately we can't. But however, it is a.
Those who grow non-F1 courgettes,
yes,
open pollinated ones, this is how you can save the seed.
Just like how those wonderful people at Garden Organics obviously preserve their heirloom varieties, of course.
Okay,
so it helps get an understanding that it is a process. But F1s, I'm afraid, just mean you've got to buy a packet of seeds, Peter.
Buy another packet next year. Never mind. It was worth a chat.
Indeed, definitely.
And what else you got for us to do then, Chris?
Right, so houseplants. We're in obviously July, lovely temperatures, so namely time to give them a bit of a holiday outside. However, a word of warning, make sure you put your houseplants in a nice shady bit of the garden. The temptation is to put them in full sun.
Yeah, they're not used to that, are they?
They're not. They'll get scorched really badly. I did that. I have to say, I put my hand up. I did that with a banana plant, put it out in the full sun, and it's bleached a couple of the leaves. The new leaves are fine. Okay. However, the
old ones are
they're unfortunately
gone a bit yellow.
Very yellow, very papery colour. So they'll scorch. So and obviously keep the feed going. Feed them obviously regularly once a week. They're going to be outside, so they're probably going to dry out quicker than being inside. Yep. So keep the liquid feed going. Again, if it's a flowering house plant, a bit of tomato feed. If it's a green plant, then obviously something like Baby Bio or Baby Bio organic fertilizer. So that's a good thing to be doing, and enjoy your plants outdoors. If you're outside enjoying the sunshine, let your plants do the same.
Definitely.
And then a bit of pruning, Peter, especially if you've got wisteria. And it's been quite a good spring for wisteria.
Well, my neighbour's got must be 6-8 inches thick, the trunk. It's on a really old house, so I wonder whether it was planted by the original owners back in, say, the 1900s, 1930s.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one did well this year. There's some good flowers on that.
That's good. So all that whippy growth, because obviously when a wisteria finishes flowering, you get all this explosion of growth, don't you?
Everywhere. They send out like little tendrils. They're quite fun.
Yeah. So those basically you just follow back to the main stem to 5 or 6 leaves, and you just trim back, and that then stimulates all the stem you leave going back to those 5 or 6 leaves. That's where you'll get your new flower next year. So the process has to start now, because obviously you've got to tell the plant that's what you want it to do. So by taking all those whippy growths back, and it's not hard and fast if you don't account 5 or 6, as long as you're cutting back and you're leaving sort of a short stump of stems, that is absolutely sufficient for the plant.
That's all it needs, and then it'll flower even better next year.
That's it, yeah. And if you've got a wisteria in a pot like I have, I've got Amethyst Falls, which is a lovely compact variety, which is still in flower. The flower's just holding on as we come out of June into July. Give that a bit of tomato feed as well. If you've got a young plant, give it a feed, because they want to put a lot of growth on. A lot of people say, how long is a wisteria going to take to flower if you're buying a young plant? Well, you've got to create the structure, a bit like a grapevine, isn't it? You've got to create those stems and rods and things in place. So it's the same with a wisteria. So all worth doing. And then other prunings, obviously anything which is flowered through the month of June, things like spireas and Weigelas and mock orange Philadelphus, which have been glorious again this year. They can be hacked back, and you can hack back quite substantially, because they've got all the summer then to recover.
Okay, yeah.
And as you know, the adage is, if you do any pruning, always balance it with a bit of a feed, so a bit of Vitex,
feed and
Q4
water.
or something like that.
Make sure it's well looked after for the next following weeks.
That's it. Yeah, a bit of water too if it's a bit dry.
And ponds, if you're fortunate enough to have a nice garden pond, I guess possibly could have been done last month or the month before. But barley straw, that's always a good addition in small quantities, just as a natural herbicide to keep on top of the blanket weed. It doesn't happen instantly. It takes a sort of good 3-4 weeks before it starts breaking down enough to release the enzymes that work as the natural anti-algae treatment. But just thinking, so this time, whilst it's so hot, the oxygen levels obviously fall in the pond as the temperature rises. So if you can put something like a fountain in the summer months, that's always a good way to oxygenate the water and keep the fish nice and happy. And also topping up the water, obviously water evaporates, and that actually concentrates all the nutrients and sort of muck in the pond down a bit. So it's always a good tip just to do some partial water changes. And always, if you're going to do a water change with tap water, put some dechlorinator in with the water you're treating, because chlorine in tap water keeps it lovely and sterile, but it doesn't do the fish much good. But even better, if you've got some left, some rainwater from the water butts is perfect for doing the water change. But yeah, I think ponds this time of the year, just try and sort of keep them freshed up and top them up, and obviously don't overfeed your fish, because again, that's a big source of nutrients going into the water.
Peter, is it still time to put in some marginal plants and oxygenators? Are we still in that sort of time, or is it getting a little bit late?
Yeah, I mean, things like Myriophyllum and some of the you can put plants in at any time of the year. I mean, some people put Canadian pondweed in their ponds. I mean, that can grow to a bit of take the pond over if you're not careful. But I think pond plants, obviously in the spring, you've got some lovely flowering plants that go always remind me, spring must be in the air. But I think the same with lilies. They should be well and truly sort of on the surface with their leaves now, and hopefully coming into flower. I'd have thought. I suppose
they're going to give some nice bit of shade then, aren't they, as well? Which is
lilies are great for giving you some surface coverage, and as do pomagescens, which are another sort of flowering plant that gives you some nice surface cover. But
perfect.
I think anything like that. Just keep an eye on lilies. Make sure you don't put Nymphia alba in a 3 foot by 3 foot 8-foot pond because you won't have any water left. It'll just take over the pond.
And I've noticed, Peter, as well, we've got some really nice sort of solar powered fountains now on the garden.
Yes.
Self-contained. I was really impressed. There's a little mill one which was rattling around.
It's quite fun, isn't it?
It's great,
they're all from Smart Garden, I think, and there's some nice little water features there. And like you say, nice to see them, the solar sort of category finally catching up and taking off, and makes it so much easier for wiring as well.
Is, yeah.
Honestly, you don't want to run a wire out into the middle of your courtyard to put a water feature in, but now you can just put your water feature out there and put the solar panel in towards the sun.
And the technology is improving all the time, isn't it?
They've got some quite a good sort of water flow coming out of them now as well. It's great.
Yeah, it's good. And I suppose also when we're talking about watering, sweet peas, of course, they need an awful lot of water. Every night I'm giving them a good drink, and obviously the secret with sweet peas, of course, is to keep them being cut. You need to keep them trimmed and harvested so you can bring some nice ones into the house, but also to stop them producing seeds. So we're mentioning, even if the seeds you want the plant to produce for keeping from year to year, you will take a lot of energy out of the plant if you do that. So, lots of trimming on those as well. And I suppose, as we've had obviously a late spring, and that people have been planting a lot later through May, June, and now into the month of July, just making sure that all those new plants are well watered too, and try and do it. Well, I know we had a chat, didn't we? I think it was with Jekka Vicar about when's the best time to water, and I think it was always a bit of a split debate. Was it in the early morning?
Yeah, she likes first thing in the morning, doesn't she? And I must say, this year down the allotment, just because time of day, when I get sort of free half an hour, tends to be in the evening, and because it's just been so dry recently, I've been watering in the evening and in the morning. And the thing that I've noticed is if you put some water on in the evening and then do it again in the morning, there seems to be a lot more water about still in the soil, whereas if you water in the morning and then come back to the evening, it's all dried out. So
maybe
I guess maybe watering in the morning is better because it gives the plants that water before it all dries out.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's just getting that balance right, isn't it? And needs as well of each individual plants. Certainly, on one of my patios, that obviously in full sun, south facing, plants need probably watering twice a day at this time of the year. Once we're into the month of July.
Well, certainly patios with pots where they're getting really warm. Same as my hanging baskets. Yeah. Once a day at least, if not twice a day sometimes, and if it's really a hot day and a sort of gentle breeze, it just dries everything out.
Indeed, yes. And I have to say, Peter, I was this week, I've had the dreadful moth caterpillars affected one of my topiary box. Absolutely despair. And over the course of 4 days, it's completely removed half the foliage. So I've been removing these little pesky caterpillars, and obviously using a basic caterpillar killer to see if I can control them. But my word,
they do cause devastation, don't they?
They do. So, and that's even with my moth traps in place as well. So that's not quite worked to plan. But I'm just keeping a good eye on the rest of my box in the rest of the garden now. So keep an eye out for box caterpillar and try defensively do something if you can.
Okay. And just thinking about sort of spiders' webs, and I spotted a bit of hedging on my way home the other day. It must be a good couple of metres. That looks like it's defoliated. It looks like a Halloween display. I've never seen anything quite so pronounced where the hedge looks in terrible condition and sort of just spiders' webs all over it. And I've taken a photo which is on the show notes, so if you want to have a look at it, but we'll identify that and put hopefully sort of discuss that on the show notes.
Yes, and that's of course, but there is a lot of problems at the moment with caterpillars, and of course the moths which come from there, or the butterflies too. So some plants are very vulnerable, and obviously a lot of the native species are. Some of the privet varieties are as well, Peter.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll do an ident and we'll get that popped up.
And we can get a picture of your box as well. And,
sadly, yes. I'll try and find a good side, but I don't think there's going to be one, unfortunately.
And do you think it'll come back to life if you kill all the caterpillars and get rid of it?
I'm going to give it a good go, certainly. It's,
excellent. Okay, so it's not game over quite yet.
Certainly not. No, it'll get
Brilliant.
lots of feed, lots of TLC, and a big banner's keeping out the the moths as well, which I suspect are going to be in the garden now. That's the worry. If you've got the caterpillars, then what follows is, of course, the adults, which obviously move around, and that's the concern now. Yeah.
That's it. And vegetables. What should I be doing with my runner beans?
Yes,
Chris?
so once they eventually do get to the top, and of course this season has been quite late, hasn't it? Well, so once you've persuaded them to go up to the top again, take the growing tips out.
Okay.
So all the energy then goes into those sort of side shoots as you look down the plant, which of course carry your lovely
that's where all the flowers are.
Flowers. Yeah, so
because normally I just grow them up and along and then down the next cane. I always thought that was quite clever, but I guess getting more crop out of them is actually what I really want. So chop the top out.
You're focusing the energy, and you do that obviously with tomatoes. Once we get into the month of August next month, then you start to think about that. But at the moment, of course, you just time in your plants, and that's what it's about this time of the year, really training your stock so you're getting them, obviously nice and upright, and obviously opening the plants out so maximum light can get to the flowers which are forming on your tomatoes as well. And obviously, it goes without saying, keep the water flowing, and bit of comfrey tea perhaps on the
my comfrey's doing really well.
Has it flowered? Yes.
No, it's I say about foot tall now.
Oh, right.
I still need to get them out of the pots that you
right.
They're still in 1 litre pots, but they're doing well in them, Chris, and they haven't dried out yet.
Yeah. So what you could do then is, once you've put them in, let them put a big flush of growth on, and you might get some sufficient leaves then to make some comfrey tea this later on this summer.
Okay.
They'll give you a nice bit of stock for later on this summer or next year.
Well, I've still, my plan was to get my bulbs that, great news, Chris, great news.
What's flowering?
My daffodils flowered on the 2nd of June.
Right, okay.
I thought that was pretty impressive to have.
Very late. Or very early.
But I was dead chuffed. I was like, finally, they flowered.
Wow, that's very strange. That's really bizarre.
The snowdrops and the bluebells, I've given up with them.
No, that's next year, I think.
But basically the plan was to get my lasagna planted pots down the allotment, and I'm going to plant them in the bottom of the allotment, and then I was going to put the comfrey in with them, so make a sort of little bit of a flowering and vegetative patch down there.
Perfect. So. Yeah, no, they're good. And I noticed around my veggie area, I've got lots of borage coming up this year, which are going to self-seeded. So borage is another plant. Obviously, you don't make comfrey from that, but you obviously
you can make tea, can't you?
You can use the you can make
proper
tea.
Yeah, and it's got nice blue flowers. I know the bees love it because it grows sort of wild in the field here, doesn't it?
It's a fantastic plant.
The bees love it.
Yeah. So if you get some seeds of borage, you can sow those now through this month to get some nice stocky plants for next year. They're quite resilient as well. And talking about seed sowing, it's biennial seed sowing time now, Peter. So that's think about wallflowers, Honesty, Lunaria, Sweet William, and of course Forget-Me-Nots. So go with those. I did some foxgloves a couple of weeks ago. Actually, they're now ready for pricking out. They move very, very quickly at this time of the year. It's a matter of keeping them cool, if you like, in your greenhouse. It's just a bit too hot. So once they've germinated, give them lots of light, and then get them moved into pots or into cell trays, root trainers, whatever you've got handy, and get some nice, stocky plants then for planting later on in the year. But good time to do it, and it's the thing we tend to miss out. And I always think it's a bit of a shame because they germinate so easily. You don't need any special propagating equipment or temperatures. They off they go.
Put them in the compost and off they go. Good stuff. Okay. And I guess the last thing we need to discuss is Christmas.
Yes. Is it too early to talk about Christmas?
No, of course not.
Well, hopefully...
This is about vegetables, isn't it, Chris?
It is,
What do we need to think about planting?
So this time of the year, the month of July into August, is potato planting time. So these are varieties, these are first early varieties which you would plant into pots, grow quite quickly in pots, and then bring into your greenhouse, cold frame, porch, so they can extendedly grow until sort of October. to be able to harvest some nice new potatoes for Christmas Day. So that's always a challenge. It's always a good challenge to do. So look out for those in the garden centre.
In the garden centre. And I guess, can I still get away with putting my Brussels sprouts in that I haven't got around to planting?
Absolutely fine, yeah. Brussels, a lot of the winter brassicas can go in over the next 2 or 3 weeks. Absolutely fine.
Brilliant. I better get down, get them planted then, hadn't I? Good stuff. Nice one. Okay, Chris, well, thank you very much for all those tips and telling us what's been going on.
Absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to the rest of summer now and enjoying this wonderful sunshine.
Brilliant. Good stuff.
Today's show was brought to you by Buckingham Garden Centre and Nurseries. The show was hosted by Chris Day and Peter Brown. The show was produced by Peter Brown. And our thanks to Chiltern Music Therapy for providing the music. Thanks for listening.
At Chiltern Music Therapy, we want everyone to know the difference that music can make in their lives. From parents and their premature babies in hospital to grandparents with dementia. We provide music therapy and community music services to people of all ages and needs across England. We work both digitally and in person in people's homes, care homes, schools, hospitals and hospices. Find out more at chilternmusictherapy.co.uk.